Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make bikini strings out of spandex. There's two different ways you can do it. Ideally with a serger. Not everyone has a serger, so you can do it with a normal sewing machine with just a straight stitch and a zigzag. I'll start by showing you that. For when you're doing it with a serger, I'll start saying this. I don't get fussy with how I cut the spandex because the serger will cut off all the extra. When you're sewing it with this, you do want to get an actual nice cut on it. This is about 1.25 inches wide. I use the outer ends of my meter stick as a guide. So what you're going to do, this fabric doesn't really have a right side, but what you're going to do, assuming there was a right side, is you put the right side, fold it so that the right side is inward and the edges lined up lengthwise. And you're going to start with your presser foot right on the edge there. So you're using a straight stitch that's relatively short. I'm using a 2 for this. You're going to stitch a few, back a few, and then what you're going to do is line up the edges and wait till the end is back here and then just really stretch it. The big thing to note is you stretch it before you start sewing it and you hold it stretched. Don't stretch it more, don't let it go, just hold it and maintain. If you have to redo your grasp, stop the machine, pull it again, and go. And now due to the nature of how you're stretching it and what you're doing, there's a good chance your edges aren't going to line up anymore. As long as this edge stays fairly close to the edge of the fabric, it's fine. So there you go. You've got a kind of messy looking seam because it does need to stretch, but it's a straight seam. Now you're going to set up a zigzag, and without crossing over the straight stitch, you're going to sew to close the two ends together, like the lengths together. Once again, you're going to stretch both ways, behind and in front of the machine, and just go. So you'll find that even though we don't have a serger, we've got a ton of strength on that and a ton of strap. So what you're going to do is take a safety pin, thread it in the end. And this gets a little fussy, but you got to get that safety pin in the loop after doing that. And then just fuss to turn it inside out over itself. Just work it on the way down so you don't get too much of a bump at the end. This is another part where using a serger is easier because instead of using a safety pin, you can use a cord threader because the thread's coming off the end. There's more of them, so it's stronger, so you can use that tied to a cord threader rather than just having to put a safety pin through the spandex itself. But here's the fun part. Comes out the other side. Now, you just flip it. And you have a bikini string, full strength, without a serger. For using a serger to make bikini strings, I usually don't get as fussy with cutting the fabric because the serger will do that job for me. I've got it on neutral stretch. I don't really like the stretch stitch. I like to do the stretching myself manually. And I've got it on a 3 of 4 for stitch length. So it's not the longest stitch, but it's also not super short. Once again, you're going to fold it so that the right side is inward. This one doesn't really have a right side, so just pretend. So again, you're going to line it up with your presser foot. Search till you get that started. And once you get a hold of the fabric that's come out the back, you're going to once again stretch front to back, like front and back away from the serger needle, and maintain your stretch. Stretch it before you're sewing, Do not stretch it more while you're sewing. Don't let it go while you're sewing. And if you have to stop to, if you have to adjust your tension, then you need to stop your machine before you stretch it. I'm just using a white thread so you can see what I'm doing. Now as you come to the end here, leave a bit of chain at the end. Of course, you do have chain on the other end, but sometimes it'll break when you're threading it through, so I like to have the insurance of having a second one if I have to go back. So you're going to thread your, this is a cord threader. You can buy it at most sewing and craft stores. So I'll just thread this whole thing on there. Generally it goes a lot smoother than this, but this is a very old one, and it's covered with all kinds of glue and everything else, so it tends to stick to my fabric. So what you do is you thread this through. I don't like to leave a long lead just because that's asking for trouble. You're gonna knot that a few times. And then it's the same basic principle as the other one. As you get in and gently, you don't want to break the thread. Let this fold over itself to get it started. Then you very gently pull the fabric out over it. And I guarantee, because we're videotaping this, I'm going to break this. I've totally jinxed myself at this point. When you pull this to lengthen it, hold the part that's already in there. Like, you can feel where the lump is, and that'll also prevent breaking the thread. So this is why you'll normally use a thread color to match, just because it does show up a bit. Then you just trim your thread. This one didn't actually come out. Normally it does. There you go. Another string. As you can see, you can't tell which one was the serger and which one was the regular fabric. Or regular sewing machine. That's how you make bikini string.